Hey everyone, Brendan Sander here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to this special review for the reissue and remastering of the Alan Parsons Project debut album, Tales of Mystery and Imagination. Originally came out in 1976, 49 years old. Cooking Vinyl has done an amazing job on this. Just came out on March 7th of 2025. So stick around. We're going to get into all that here in just a bit. But if you are new to my channel and you haven't already subscribed, please do. Don't forget to leave a comment and hit like. All those things do help my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. But for now, we're going to be talking about the debut album from Alan Parsons Project, Tales of Mystery and Imagination. So lyrical themes on this are a retelling of horror stories and poems by Edgar Allan Poe. You can actually see that it is subtitled with his name on there. And the title of this, Tales of Mystery and Imagination, is actually taken from a collection of stories from Edgar Allan Poe. But let's talk more about the album itself. So musicians included on here are not the typical musicians that Alan Parsons would work with going forward, making this album here very interesting in my mind. So we've got Arthur Brown from the Crazy World of Arthur Brown on here, Terry Sylvester of the Hollies, Frank Monkman from Curved Air and Sky on keyboards. John Miles is on here. And then we have almost the entirety of the bands Ambrosia and Pilot on here, backing up Alan Parsons and Eric Wolfson on here. The album art itself, this being the original album art to it as well, Hypnosis, Storm Thurgeson doing this. And according to Storm, the band had approached him. When I say band, I'm really talking about Alan Parsons and Eric Wolfson, looking for a classy design. And because Poe was obsessed with entombment, incarceration, things like that, they came up with this idea about a man encased in recording tape. And we find that on the inside here. In this image here, we find it in some other images on this. I actually like the way this gatefold opens up. You know, it's very plain here with the man in shadow, but this being like recording tape that's on it. So that's where all that's coming from. But you can see it more clearly on this version of it, where they actually added this art to the existing that was on here. And we get the head of a man encased in recording tape, and then you see a drawing of it behind there. And if you pull the booklet out from this, we can actually see the full picture of the man encased in recording tape. So that's at least where those images and things come from as far as the album is concerned. And at the time, though, interestingly, critics did not feel that the album accurately conveyed or represented the macabre fear that Edgar Allan Poe's works do. And while the album itself, I agree, does not come across as what you might call scary music or eerie sounding music, the stories are told lyrically throughout this. And I think it does bring it across in, you know, an amazing manner in terms of what it was they were trying to do storytelling wise on here. So now I pointed to this one earlier, showing you the difference between the original album art and this one. This one here is the 1987 remix version of the album itself. And when I had found out there were two versions of the album, I'm one of those kind of collectors and people that really enjoy tracking down and hearing different variations of albums from my favorite artists. And so in 1987, Alan Parsons went back in, added additional keyboards and guitars, and also narration from Orson Welles. So the other cool thing that they did to the album, because this was the era of CD, is that where side A fades out into allowing for side B to start up, they faded or segued those together. So on this version here, it plays like one continuous thing, where the original version of the album did not do that. Well, that's the stuff that here, all that's been removed. The narration, the additional guitar and keyboards, that segue bit, this has been restored back to the original 1976 album. So we also get the original art, which I really like on it. The thing that I'm curious between those two versions is which one Alan Parsons prefers, because he did go in and do it in 1987. It's not like somebody else did it or a record label did it. He did it. So which version does Alan Parsons prefer? Do we know? I don't know. If any of you guys know, you let me know. Put it in the comments, and then everyone here will know, hopefully. But personally, I never liked the narration, and I have this version coming from the box set that was done by Arista Records, put out by Legacy, Sony. So you get all the albums in one thing. So I had always had this version since I got into the band, and I didn't know any other one. I didn't know there was a non-narrated version of it. And I have to say that this version of it here, the sound on it, the mix that was done, is very dry to my ears. The instruments don't breathe. It's all kind of mixed very even on this one here. So to the opposite of that, Cooking Vinyl having done a remastering on this one here, I feel like they actually made space for each of the instruments. It's a very clear sounding mix on here. The instruments have room to breathe within it. So they basically restored the life to the original sound of this album on this one here. And I far prefer this version here over the 1987 remix, at least in my opinion. Listening to this sounded like an Alan Parsons album to me, like the rest of their albums. So I was much easier and able to get into that version of it, enjoying it much more than I previously had with this. This, in fact, was my least favorite of all their albums up until now, hearing this cool remastering. So there is some bonus content on here. You get the original 7 songs of the album. And also what I like that has been restored here is that track 6 remains as one song. Whereas in this version here, they broke it down into individual tracks on the CD so that by the time you're done, it shows 11 tracks on there, whereas we are back down to just having 7 read out. There's 4 bonus tracks, as I mentioned. So Dream Within a Dream and The Raven, there is an early mix on here. Telltale Heart has an Eric Wolfson guide vocal. The Cask of Amontillado, sorry if I said that wrong, guide vocal on that one, and Dr. Tur and Professor Feather, also a guide vocal version on there. And so while I don't think that any of those are necessarily essential listens to the album, I do think they provide a really interesting insight into the creative process behind making the album, kind of like you're a fly on the wall in the studio. You're sitting right there as the album is being created. And for that alone, I think it's very interesting and fascinating to hear. I'd actually like an entire album, same sequence, same tracks, just done in those earlier versions. It'd be a nice companion piece to this. But let's say bottom line on this album, this new remastering of it, if you've only ever heard the 1987 version, now is the time to check this one out, to hear the way it was originally done. I don't know if originally intended, because Alan Parsons may prefer this one, but the original way that the album came out in 1976, remember back at that time, us Floyd fans, Dark Side of the Moon, and Alan Parsons being an engineer and going out and doing his own thing. So this was a big deal at that time. It's also the restored version of it, so I think that's a very cool thing here. I think if you're looking for the best sound quality of any of the album versions that are out on the market, this Cooking Vinyl reissue is where it's at. It's the way to go. It sounds amazing on here. It really opened up my ears to the album itself and showed me the power and strength of what was actually going on for the album that I didn't find in this one. I found over here on this version. So there you go. That is the Alan Parsons Project Tales of Mystery and Imagination review. As far as just a little quick unboxing of this thing to show you guys the inside of it there, and the CD itself, which does pull out. The booklet was from here, and I'll show you that real quickly because there was some other cool art and things inside, and of course you get the story and all of that great stuff in here, and you get a breakdown of who's playing on the tracks, as well as lyrical content and stuff on here. So it's a great little booklet that goes along with this single disc CD that has been remastered and restored. And I always like the hype sticker. So If you guys can see that and pause on that, then you can get the hype that came on this thing that I think was cool. And you know what's interesting is that the sticker itself doesn't actually mention anything. It does say a remastering of the original 1976 album on here, so I take that back. But I didn't initially know what that meant and how it was different from this. So I do think that it is a key thing. If you've been on the fence about this, I wanted to make this video for those of you that wanted to know more and maybe don't know there was a 1976 version and a 1987 version. But having learned that myself, I much prefer the 1976 version, and the version to go out and get would be this one here from Cooking Vinyl. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this. Take care, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.